Hello, host Eric here, talking with famous people, and we are going to be talking in this episode about the issue of when you talk, when you think. So, do you start talking before your thought is determined ahead of time, in some sense that you don't know what you're going to say before you actually say it, or do you have a fully realized sentence in your head before you start speaking it? I can't imagine life as the latter, but I think a lot of people do experience life as the latter. Zachary, do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
Well, how I usually experience it, I don't really think in words. I think in sort of like conceptions, or objects. And when I speak, it's a matter of conveying those objects, and I sort of construct it grammatically as I speak. So ideas or concepts or any like train of thought, I'm usually aware of in general, like an intuitive sense of what I want to say before I start speaking, but I don't have a grammatically organized way of presenting it. I convey it as I'm speaking. I think that's expert intuition acting. Um, yeah.
So you've got objects representing ideas that unpack as you say them. Would that be a good way to put that?
Yeah. Well, no. I guess in certain situations, it's more like I sort of I have like an intuitive understanding of what I want to say, but it's not in words. It's translated into words as I speak.
Okay, so you've got a concept that then becomes a fully realized concept when you say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, I
In a
get.
way, speaking is sort of in a way manifesting those ideas in the world, because it's still in the abstract until they're translated into the world. So when I'm speaking, I'm putting it in a way that, I mean, it's why we evolved to have language. You know, it's conveying like abstract concept. It's conveying,
You're collapsing its superposition.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So I like that idea of the fact that we have in our head potential ideas that become collapsed into reality when we actually say them, either to ourselves in actual words, which sometimes I think we do. Sometimes we do work out sentences ahead of time. A lot of times I'll practice saying things in various contexts when I'm not on camera. So,
Yeah.
for example, I was lying on the couch in bed, and I was feeling an emotion related to all my dead relatives, and I tried to hold on to it and feel it without running away from terror from it, because I mean they're long dead and they were very old when they died. There was nothing implicitly tragic about it, but it's something I never really faced before or wrestled with before as an emotion. So I tried to sit there and hold on to that emotion. And I did for a split second, and then I immediately transitioned into describing to an audience the process of me holding on to that emotion. It immediately switched over from FI to FE, like automatically.
Hmm. Um, Dusk Eraser put in the chat, when I speak, I tend to understand it more as I speak, so it can help further the idea. I agree, and I think that's why INTPs make really good teachers, or there's a certain expectancy that they do, because as you convey your thoughts, it's sort of when you explain something to another person. Most of the times when I'm explaining something to another person, I haven't put it into words yet, and I'm sort of actualizing my own understanding of the information as I do that. And then when I put it out there, then I realize there might be certain mechanisms in that understanding that translate over to other areas, and it allows me to sort of expand my understanding. But I think that's why it's really good for if you study, like if you're, this is probably true for any type, but especially NTPs. If you're studying for some sort of test or you're learning information, the best way to learn it is to not just read it, but to put it to your own words. And that will give you because if you put it to your own words, it's sort of like you're completely understanding the mechanisms by which it operates on. You understand how the information relates to each other, how the concepts kind of intertwine, and that allows you to truly assimilate the information.
He's 14. He needs something a lot more concrete than all the perfectly true stuff you just said. He needs to do debate.
Yeah, you should. You should do debate if you have that at your school.
That'll do all that stuff Zachary just said.
What is debate?
Actually, I sent you a link of Courtney being a badass, being a 14-year-old badass, and laying lumber
Yeah.
on. It's basically that. It's arguing. Well, you know what? Let me ask Zachary to describe it from the perspective of somebody who's not a debate coach originally, and who's recently become involved in debate coaching and done coaching for me, and who's done judging and stuff like that. I think maybe he'll give a better rundown of it. I'm going to pause this for a second so I can
Debate?
get. Yeah, can you please give him a rundown of debate from the perspective of somebody who came to it, uh, you know, recently, and who's come to, I hope, view it as something of value for students and for even for adults to understand the principles of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be right back.
So basically, what debate is, it's an official format, but called forensics. But basically, it's where there are like two teams. I coach public forum, so there's two people on each team. Basically, there is pretty much a statement made, and one side has to affirm it, one side has to negate it. Like over the summer, there was the one for the Nationals was if a one-day national primary would be more beneficial to the United States than our current system. And so basically, you are building a case full of logical arguments and evidence to back those arguments up as to why your side should be preferred over the other side. And it's very fun to build a case. I actually found building cases more fun than running them, honestly. But it's fun to. It's basically just all about logic and understanding how the information relates and arguing that more efficiently than your opponent is arguing their side. But obviously, it's very interesting. See, I had no experience at all when Eric brought me on to coach, and I was sort of just thrown into it. But I think INDP is sort of like a natural inclination toward it because we have like the TI that's dominant, so we gain energy by making sure everything's consistent. So it was very fun to make like the cases and find arguments for each thing. For example, like in the one national primary, we found that there were 4 mathematical criterion to make something like voting be completely fair and just. And we found a voting system that, if implemented on one-day national primary, was 100% mathematically validated to be fair. And we put the entire case around that, and it was really fun. It's pretty much just all about logic, but it's not. It's all logic, but it's not just merely analytics or polemic. It's you still have to have real life evidence, but honestly, you can kind of bend the evidence to your narrative if you play it right. So yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, some of the judges at Nationals were lay judges, so they were like judging the public forum rounds, but they weren't even writing down any of the arguments. They were just kind of sitting there and just listening to the kids and then arbitrarily deciding who won. I think that's pretty unjust, especially in a national convention. I don't think that should be happening whatsoever, but that's how it is. But it definitely, I could see the great benefit in competition and adding competition to something like academia makes it that much more interesting and beneficial because it means the kids have to actually learn the information. If they don't know the information, they're not going to be able to argue shit. And they're not going to like getting shit on by another kid who knows the information better. So it adds incentive to do that. Well, I think it's like some of the kids may have like they may argue with logic, but they may present it in a bad way. That's why a lot of the judges. There's also, coaching in speech. It's not just about how logically sound their arguments are, but in a way, it's how they present it. If they're not presenting it very, I suppose, assertively, a lay judge is going to see that and they're going to perceive it as a weak argument, even if it actually isn't. Because it's not really necessarily, when you're judging, you have to kind of prevent yourself from filling in the blanks for the kids. Even if you know where they're going with their arguments, you can't really give them the credit if they don't actually make the right argument. Yeah, experience is definitely needed. What kind of hobbies do you do? What hobbies are you into?
I am very naturally artistically gifted. Like, I'm good at drawing, especially abstract things, not so much faces. But I find that it's hard for me to sit down for 2 hours and draw something because I get really bored. I will sit on YouTube all day and try to, pretty much what I'm doing now, just learn about things. And if I can't find anything, then I'll just watch videos to humor me.
Let's see.
I do power lift, though. In about an hour and 10 minutes, maybe in 2 hours and 10 minutes, I have to go work out today, unless there's just something and I don't.
Let's see.
It is justified for an INTP to be a powerlifter because it's not a very teamwork-oriented sport. You will interact with people, but it's usually people that are close-knit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's like, I don't think any hobbies are particularly exclusive to any type. But
Yeah.
there's reasons different types might enjoy hobbies. For specific reasons.
Mm-hmm. Like an introvert would probably be less likely to enjoy a sport where you
I
have
don't know.
to
ISTPs are actually pretty good at sports. There are a lot of quarterbacks who are ISTPs.
interact with a ton of people that could possibly not necessarily a sport because there's not too many people, but maybe being famous like in the NFL because you'd interact with a lot of people that you get annoyed by.
Yeah, if you haven't figured your FE, I imagine dealing with a lot of people on a daily basis is going to be trippy. But I think that, especially for like an ISTP, is going to enjoy the sensory experience and sort of like the strategic aspect of sports. So I can see why it's appealing to them.
I find my FE, my inferior FE, not to be very bad during school because there's only about 400 people in my school because I live in a town with a population of about 7,000. So I more or less know everyone in my grade.
Well, I mean, FE isn't necessarily like anxiety. It just means you have
Yeah,
a hard time dealing with other people's emotions, really, or really even your own, like your emotions in relation to how others are.
I've noticed that I know a very emotional person that needs, like, me being as much of an introvert as I am, I have to get in my bubble after too much social interaction, and they're just the opposite. So I find that troubling
Introverts are
sometimes.
like that. Is that what you said?
Being introverted as I am, that's how I act.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I can't really even if I like hang out with a close friend for a while, I gotta breathe, you know.
Yeah.
Is this a good place to stop this video? It's 16 minutes. It seems like a pretty good length, unless you guys have a compelling interest in wrapping it up, coming back to some central idea. I'm not sure where you've gone or what's been talked about.
We just talked about I just went over debate stuff and then I don't know, stopped video. There's yeah.
All right, thanks
Yeah.
for watching Talking with Fans People.